Carl Campbell shot in West Bromwich with a .44 Smith and Wesson Russian revolver. Derek Myers killed in Birmingham with a .44 revolver. Kenichi Phillips died after being fired at with a .38 revolver. Every one of these handguns was brought into the country totally legally because they were classified as antiques.
These types of weapons can and do kill.
There's no restriction. The fact that it's a gun is neither here nor there.
Tonight, we reveal a loophole in the UK's gun laws causing death on our streets and show how criminals can get their hands on fully functioning murder weapons.
Well, wow, that was pretty easy. I couldn't believe it, to be honest.
I'm Greg McKenzie. In the last year alone, I've reported on 5 shootings for BBC News.
Well, police were called here to the Walthamstow Leisure Centre on Monday night to reports of gunfire. When they arrived, they found a 16-year-old who reportedly
Police have discovered 2 teenage boys who'd been seriously injured from gunshot wounds. They were taken to hospital, where their condition is said to be non-life-threatening. Some get to me more than others. Earlier this year, I watched as a mother, Britannia Morgan, clean the streets of blood after her son's murder.
He never deserved this, and it needs to stop.
I'm so sorry. Gun crime is rising. I want to know where the weapons are coming from. I'm in the West Midlands, where I'm told I can find some answers.
Here in Birmingham, there's a clue to what's behind so many of these shootings.
Deep beneath the streets of Birmingham is a police strong room. It's full of weapons. These handguns are legal to own because they're classified as antiques. They were seized by DC Phil Rogers. They've been linked to more than 100 crime scenes and a number of murders.
I mean, there's just weapons galore here. You've got boxes and boxes. So what have we got here?
This here weapon is a .44 Russian revolver. It fires and works like a modern revolver. The only reason that is an antique is because of the caliber, which is .44 Russian.
The caliber of a weapon is determined by the size of the ammunition it fires.
There's quite a weight on that.
The UK has strict gun laws, but these antique weapons are legal to own. They're so old, ammunition isn't made for them anymore, so the government classifies them as obsolete caliber. But there's a problem. Ammunition can be homemade.
Unless you're a prohibited person and have got criminal convictions, anyone can buy these weapons. They're fully functioning weapons. You do not have to do anything to them. You don't have to do any adaptations to make them work. What you need to turn them into deadly weapons is the ammunition.
Yeah, I've seen people get shot in their hands, arms, chest, back, neck. I see people die in front of me, and the reality of it is it gave me a feeling of mortality and the fact that human beings can be switched off just like that. So one bang, and that's it, game over.
The streets got a hold of me. Every day's a risk, they wanna take my soul from me. I'm taking food on ticket, never paying no money. More time, I'm with the sticks, so you could go for me.
Dylan Doofus and rapper Simeon Moore run the YouTube channel That's TV. Its aim is to stop young black men getting drawn into crime.
The slave master told us we would. Took away the chain, but they left us in the prisons and programmed us with tunnel vision. The streets got a hold of me, shackled up a chain.
We started going into schools, delivering workshops, intense mentoring. We was doing business workshops, helping people start their own business and get grants. Death, jail, and he's got
mental health.
And mental health. They're the only three things that are promised and guaranteed from this lifestyle.
Simeon has convictions for firearms offences. Both he and Dylan are familiar with guns available on the street.
I mean, 22s, 38s, 9mm, 8mm, 7.5s, Glocks, machine guns, semi-automatics, fully automatics. Like I've had
shotguns.
Yeah, shotguns as well. I've quite a few shotguns, to be fair. We started off having shotguns.
They also know all about antique handguns.
We've had some antiques where we've had to kind of look after them, oil them up and take them to a man.
Take the rust off them.
And take the rust off them, clean them up. The guy opens it up, oil it up and make it nice. And it's working like brand new. They're the best ones, to be fair, because they're the most, I would say they're the most reliable.
Yeah, they don't jam.
Whenever someone is shot, the evidence from guns to bullets is analysed by the National Ballistics Intelligence Service. It was here that forensic expert Greg Taylor first noticed similarities in bullets recovered from crime scenes. He worked out they were being handmade for antique guns. And what are we seeing here, Greg?
So what you're looking at on the screen is a split screen image showing two primed cartridge cases. And it's like looking at two barcodes ultimately when you get it lined up. And when the two barcodes come together, you can start to then see matching detail. It's part of my job as a forensic scientist to look at these tool markings. And when we look at, say, crime scene A against crime scene B, we can make a conclusive link.
Greg's evidence proved vital to an investigation into Nozza Stevenson, head of a notorious Birmingham gang. Police suspected he was selling ammunition and weapons to criminals in London. On Boxing Day 2013, Hassan Isman was shot on the dance floor of a London nightclub with a Colt revolver. A year later, the police finally caught up with Stevenson.
Basically caught red-handed the supply of 5 firearms to customers coming into Stevenson's gang. And we took approximately 8 weapons from the group and nearly 500 rounds of ammunition. All the supplies that we evidenced were antique revolvers, so Dutch revolvers and Saint Etienne revolvers with modified ammunition to go with them.
Nozza Stevenson got 22 years in prison. Relatives of victims killed by his guns wouldn't talk to us on camera. After Stevenson's imprisonment, one question remained. Where had he got the guns from? The mystery took years to unravel. The lawyer who prosecuted the case is one of Birmingham's leading criminal barristers, Andrew Fisher QC. The vital clue came from a single handmade bullet. It led police to a physiotherapist in Birmingham, Dr. Mohinder Sardar.
He was plainly very obsessed by guns. There were photographs that he'd taken of himself, or had taken of himself, holding all sorts of ferocious weapons.
The police scoured Serdar's armoury, but didn't find the evidence they were looking for.
Having searched Serdar's premises, they didn't find any of the bullets that were used in these modified rounds, nor did they find any modified cartridge cases. So there was nothing at Serdar's to match with that ammunition. So where was it coming from?
Then they got a breakthrough, a single receipt in Serdar's paperwork from a gun dealer living in Gloucester. His name was Paul Edmunds.
So they contacted Edmunds and said, "What do you know about Serdar?" He said, "Oh, well, I've got some guns of his that I'm trying to sell." So the police asked to meet with Edmunds, and it was agreed to meet him at the Birmingham Arms Fair. Under his stand at the Birmingham Arms Fair, they saw a bag of bullets. The police then went to his premises. They took with them the examples of bullets that had been recovered. He indicated that they were all bullets that he made.
Making and selling lethal rounds carries a sentence of 5 years. The police searched Edmunds' house.
They found approximately 100,000 rounds of either full rounds or component parts of ammunition.
The police also discovered a huge arsenal of guns he'd imported from America. Most were antique and perfectly legal.
Paul Edmunds was regularly going over to the US of A, and he would attend gun shows. I think in the 5 years in this investigation, we found 39 trips he had made. Any gun made before 1899 is classified as an antique. So any non-American native can actually buy those weapons in the USA. He would then buy maybe a dozen weapons.
Edmunds also used the law on antique weapons to smuggle in more modern, illegal revolvers. Unless you're an expert, it's hard to tell new guns from old ones.
He was describing these particular weapons as an older model, and he was also describing them as that they were chambered in the obsolete caliber, and he was also declaring that all of them were over 100 years old from the date of import.
The court heard that Edmunds' guns and ammunition were used in at least 3 murders. He was sentenced to 30 years. Serdar, who sold the guns on, got 14 years. The National Ballistics Intelligence Service wants the antique revolvers most often used in crime made illegal.
They're easy to purchase, they don't fall under the licensing if they're possessed as an antique or a curio, and we know that offenders are quoting that loophole in the legislation at police officers when they're stopped and searched.
And in terms of that loophole, how easy is it going to be to close that loophole?
Obsolete calibers, we think, should be removed from the list so the guns no longer get the definition of an antique and don't fall under that loophole around the curio or ornament.
But others want to go much further. They're also calling for an electronic register of all firearms. They say it's currently easier to trade guns than it is to sell scrap metal.
If I want to scrap my old kettle and take it to the scrapyard, I have to take my passport and my driving licence. My vehicle will be recorded on camera going into and coming out of the scrapyard. I can't be paid in cash. It has to be done by bank transfer or by cheque. So there's a complete audit trail, and that's for my kettle. If I want to buy a gun, which is fully operational, not deactivated, but a fully operational firing, in effect modern handgun, modern revolver, for which I can obtain ammunition very easily, there needs to be no record or trace whatsoever. That contradiction, in my view, is a nonsense.
So I recognise this one already. This is a 44
That's a 44
Russian.
Smith and Wesson Russian. There are 2 here. That's the new model and the Russian model.
Many gun collectors are opposed to an electronic register.
We live in the electronic age and recording things is something people do. We don't have electronic registers of collectible medals, art, furniture or anything else. But okay, if you say, well, can we have an electronic register of antique firearms? What would eventually happen is that all of the law-abiding antique owners would put them on the register, but criminals wouldn't. And it's the criminals who have the ammunition, and clearly they're not going to come along and declare it.
Gun dealer Paul Edmunds has been in prison for 8 months now. He was a white man using a loophole in the law to import guns that killed black men. I'm told his methods are still being used. I want to put that to the test. I asked reporter Daniel Foggo to help me. The police have told us that you can go to America, find yourself a gun shop, buy a gun and literally bring it back to the UK, albeit an antique gun. But the thing is, it's fully working.
No license or anything needed, yeah?
Yeah, and if you can get hold of the bullets, then you've got yourself a murder weapon.
It's just as deadly as any other gun?
Exactly.
Wow.
Would you think about going out there and putting it to the test?
Of course, yeah.
It's probably easier for you to go. What we're finding is that in the UK it was kind of old middle-aged white guys that were going out buying these antiques and getting them back into the country.
Yeah, well, I won't take offence at being an old middle-aged white guy, but no, I'm happy to have a go at that. Yeah.
Daniel's been online and chosen an antique gun in full working order. He's landed in Houston, Texas, and is off to the dealers to collect it.
Look at that. Smith and Wesson Russian 44, which fires 44 caliber ammunition in the Russian style, which they don't make anymore, so that's why it's designated as obsolete. No license required. I just walked in, I paid $2,250 and 6 chambers. It's the real deal.
Now, to get the gun home, he doesn't need an import license because it's an antique. He follows US government and airline shipping instructions available online.
The first step to getting this back into the country, back into the UK, is packing it into my luggage. I'm following the regulations about what I've got to do to bring this gun into Britain. I've put it in a hard-sided case with locks on, which I've then put inside my case. And apparently that's all I've got to do to bring a lethal weapon back into the UK. I find it hard to believe that they're going to let me do that, to be honest, but we'll see.
Daniel's got the gun on the plane and into the UK. He heads for the Red Channel at Heathrow. He'll be met by customs officials because he has a gun in his luggage.
Coming through Heathrow, the guys there, the Border Force officials, have just said, okay, right, yeah, it is exempt, and I just got to pay the 5% duty on the price I paid for it, and then they waved me through.
Incredible.
And that was that. So we've got a gun.
Fantastic.
Yeah. A Smith and Wesson 44 Russian.
Fully working?
It's fully working, yeah.
We've successfully brought a potential murder weapon into the country. We've left behind a bit of a paper trail. But we've been told there's a way to buy guns leaving no trace at all.
This is what it is, yeah.
No. It's the day of the Birmingham Arms Fair, where convicted gun dealer Paul Edmunds had a stall. It's a legal trade show attended by firearms collectors and dealers. We're undercover to test how easy it is to buy potentially lethal antique guns for cash.
Can I just check, what methods of payment do you do?
Cash, card, debit.
We asked 7 dealers, all said they would take cash as well as other payment methods. These guns can be bought and sold because they're on the government's obsolete caliber list. It's all totally legal.
This one, the Smith and Wesson, what's the caliber on that? Is it 44 Russian? Oh, it is, okay. Yeah. Which year are these?
These are made round about in the 1880s. Anything made prior to 1st of January 1899 is antique.
All right, we'll go for that, thanks. Okay, fine. No, so I'll pay cash then.
Yep.
Did you write the name and address today? His telephone number?
Yeah.
Daniel pays in cash and gives the dealer a false name and address. If he was a criminal, who would know? There's now no way to trace this weapon.
That is a Smith and Wesson 44 Russian.
You just purchased that in Birmingham, just like that?
Yeah.
No questions asked?
That's it. Certainly very similar to the modern day one that you might buy now.
And how much did this set you back, Daniel?
2,500 for that.
I mean, all you've got to do now is get the rounds, and this is a deadly weapon.
Yeah.
So let's look for components for making rounds.
Yeah, okay.
UK.
So we'll type in.
It's no longer possible to buy factory-made ammunition for the guns we bought, but the components to homemade rounds are available on the internet.
There you are, look. There we are, 44 brass, that'll be the one.
So let's see how much we can get. How much are they if we order them?
£28 for 100.
This website demands a firearms license before it will sell some components. Unlike this one, others don't.
So that's the blank cartridges.
That's the empty cartridge, yeah.
And that will fit your gun.
And then in that, you need to then put the propellant, the gunpowder, some kind of primer, which fires the bullet, which goes in the top and ends up lodged in someone's body.
That there is the actual mould to make your own bullets. So once you've got that, you can create your own, just put the lead in and just start knocking them out.
It all seems so simple, but I want to check that we've got this right. I visit Greg Taylor at the National Ballistics Intelligence Service. He shows me how it's done, but for safety reasons leaves out several key stages.
So show us how you do it, Greg.
It's a case of just preparing the case, ready to receive the bullet. Place the bullet on the top and use the seating tool here to just seat that bullet into place. And there you would have a live round of ammunition.
Quite quick.
Once you get your set up, then it can take literally seconds to produce rounds of ammunition in this method.
Paul Edmunds may be behind bars, but others have taken his place, supplying guns and ammunition.
The impact of taking Paul Edmunds and Mahinder Sardar into Nozza Stevenson out of the firearms supply, that was a significant route of firearms into criminal hands. However, antique weapons are still on the streets. They still need ammunition for them. And other people are stepping into the gap in the market.
Carl Campbell was shot in 2016 after Edmunds' arrest. The bullets that killed him were examined by Greg Taylor.
And I realised that actual fact there was a new person active who had perhaps filled the void of where Paul Edmunds had finished, and the detectives eventually were led to, and Kevin Bates in particular. It was the same theme of making modified rounds for obsolete calibre guns. So there's been a continuation for a fair number of years now, a continuation of the threat, if you like, of making this obsolete calibre ammunition to fit these guns and then it being transferred onto the streets of the UK.
This March, Kevin Bates was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Critics say that unless the law is changed, others will take his place too.
Well, if the law isn't changed and there are not improvements to the regulation of the firearms legislation, then this is just going to continue. There are people doing it, and there have been subsequent cases, and there are still further cases being investigated now of exactly that. Anyone with a modicum of knowledge could do it.
Joe, why does it matter to try and change the law in terms of the antique weapons and the calibers? Why should people even care?
It's about public safety. You know, so we've had over 500 recorded and handed in to us that we found in criminal circumstances. You know, 6 of those were involved in fatalities. You know, there's 40 plus been used in injuries to people who have been shot. So there is, you know, a real reason for public safety why certain calibers need to become, you know, off the obsolete caliber list so that they can no longer be possessed by criminals as an antique.
Our concern is that if these aren't taken off the list, the law-abiding collectors don't have them. We lose part of heritage. Once it's gone, it's gone. And if you change the law or strengthen it, it just means that the criminals have more laws to break.
Tightening the law would restrict the number of guns coming into the UK, but worryingly, hundreds of Paul Edmunds weapons are still in circulation. That's why Simeon Moore and Dylan Doofus say attitudes need to change too.
We need to change the whole way we think and operate, because for me, that's the only thing that's going to take us away from where we are now.
Because when you're stuck in your little block in your estate and you ain't left there since you was a child, you don't even know there's a bigger world. Like, you probably see it on the Instagram or on television, but it's not a reality to you. So you think this is all that matters, and the reality is there's a big world, and these kids don't really know that. And that is one of the main problems.
The 2 Russian 44 handguns we bought are now locked in the police store. The Home Office says it's consulted on proposals to enshrine in law a new definition of antique firearms, ensuring older weapons, which could still pose a danger to the public, are licensed. It's expected to make a decision this autumn.
Nobody knows how many hundreds or thousands of antique guns are still out there, or how many of those are going to be used to kill.
Tragic as it is, it seems inevitable I'll continue to report on the growing number of shootings on our streets.